Hi, so the US debt ceiling has now been lifted to December 2021. Problem solved, right? Well, if we go by 2011 and what happened in 2013, yeah, not really. So the answer is no. In fact, this one could get far, far worse. I'm going to explain why, to the point where this could lead to the US losing the position as leader of the free world if we go far enough. Let me explain why. Now, let's go quickly back into what happened with this debt ceiling. We've now extended this debt ceiling until December with $480 billion. But what's really scary is that we actually ran out of money in August, 2 months ago. And the US Treasury Department has actually just been doing accounting tricks to shuffle money around so that the US would not have defaulted during this time. If they did not do that, the US would have actually defaulted and declared bankruptcy. So that's actually how far we are to the brink. Now, let's actually talk about how much this debt actually is. This debt, according to some sources, is $28.4 trillion. Now, I'm going to go by the US debt clock, which says it's 28.8 trillion. Now, to break that down to how big that actually is, for every man, woman, and a child, they would owe 87,000 US dollars. That's a lot of money to owe for everyone involved. But if we break this down further, only a third of the people in the US actually pay any taxes. So for each taxpayer, they now owe $230,000 plus interest. That's a lot. So how much is this interest per year? For each taxpayer, that's about $13,000. Now, the question is, how much does a taxpayer pay in taxes a year? Well, according to the US debt clock, it's actually $11,400 a year. So already by that, the US is underwater. We're in big, big trouble. How are we going to solve it? Well, I call this problem number 1, but this could actually have a domino effect and hit problem number 2, 3, and 4. And by the time we get to problem number 4, you're probably going to be pretty scared about this video. But let's continue anyway. My job isn't to scare you, but inform you. So the 3 solutions we can have to solve this problem is number 1, inflation. Inflate the debt away. All you do is you print dollars, you have high levels of inflation, and then it's easier to pay back the existing debt because the debt, relatively speaking, doesn't grow, but because our currency have depreciated so much, it's sort of worth toilet paper, our wages increase, everything else increases, then using that money to pay back this debt, which doesn't increase, would seem easier. So that's solution number 1. Not the best solution, as you can tell. Solution number 2 is to default. Simply not pay back the debt, declare bankruptcy, it's all good, right? Well, not really. That would cause a financial crisis far, far bigger than 2008 and basically collapse the world economy and bankrupt the US. So that's not the best way to go about it. The third way is actually US grows their way out of it and starts developing businesses and products and services to sell that can generate them enough money to pay back the debt. Now, that is like what I call the miracle solution. And I'll actually go through how likely that is. So we're going to focus on the first 2 solutions. Now, the problem with these 2 solutions, inflating out of the debt, as well as simply not paying the debt, they actually cause problem number 2, which is a loss of credibility to the US dollar. And this is the biggest danger. And in fact, if we review what's been happening in the last 2 years, we've already had a lot of big hits. Now, this is on top of all the money printing the US already does. They print now $120 billion a month just to keep the economy going. Also, the US, we don't have any interest rates. That's also a cause for concern. So anyone that's holding the US dollars would start questioning all across the world, what is the value of this thing? I can't get any interest. They're printing it to oblivion. Why are we using this currency? And by the way, this US debt ceiling debacle is maybe the final nail in the coffin. Possibly. We'll see. All right, let's begin with COVID itself. So COVID started infecting US, and then in response, there was a stimulus bill to actually get money to people across the nation who ended up staying at home, watching Netflix and just day trading. That money ended up also in the stock market, and the stock market just went straight up diagonally without any drop. And on top of that, all that money went into these hot stocks, these meme stocks. We're talking about stuff like GameStop, AMC, and joke cryptocurrencies like Dogecoin. And now we've got a new one, Shiba Inu. Great. So all the economic and financial energy during this time has been directed into joke stocks. What does that tell about the US economy and as well as the currency that was created? Has that become a joke too? Right, let's move on. Let's talk about the federal election that happened in late 2020. That, to the observers abroad, looked like a joke. No, both sides of the political aisle could not see eye to eye. There were many issues with the electoral process being argued. In fact, we had a sitting president basically banned off communicating on Twitter, on the social networks, which is incredible stuff. Anyone abroad will start questioning what the US is as a democracy or a free country after that debacle that was the federal election. And then we're going to move to the worst one, the biggest hit against the US dollar credibility. And that is Afghanistan. Not that long ago, in August. Literally, this is the worst, most embarrassing moment in US military history. I don't believe I'm exaggerating that. This is worse than Vietnam. Why? Biden literally said that they were not going to be taken over. It would be months away. And within days, the Taliban was all over Kabul. So, when the commander-in-chief has such a massive miscalculation and you're seeing all this footage of the Taliban overwhelming the Kabul and US soldiers and personnel just, scrambling to get out, that is not a good look. In fact, Japan, their central bank, the Bank of Japan, only weeks after that, started talking about their gold reserves they had on their balance sheet. This is something that they rarely ever do. They haven't done for years, decades. They didn't mention that. All of a sudden, they start talking about how much gold they have instead of their dollar-denominated reserves. That's kind of strange, isn't it? Well, let me contextualize it a bit more. The reason why the world uses the US dollar as the world reserve currency is because US effectively won World War II. And the prize of winning World War II, they could actually propose the Bretton Woods system, which meant that all the world, the countries, would use the US dollar as the means to trade because of how stable the US was, especially after World War II. That system is still in place today. And if we look at who does not ever want to use that system, who rejected that system, well, it's not a pretty sight. Iraq rejected using the US dollar for trading oil. Look what happened to them. Libya refused to trade using the US dollar, and look what happened to them too. So the military is what's policing the use of the US dollar. But what happens when the military is not very credible? The US dollar loses credibility too. So that is the latest big hit. Now, we've got a new latest big hit, and that is this debacle on the debt ceiling. They couldn't even decide to borrow more or to borrow less. They couldn't decide. In fact, what about repaying the debt? Is that an option? Should that be an option? Or are you just working out how to avoid the problem? Right? That in itself loses credibility for the US dollar. And that is something that has extreme effects across the world, especially when countries are considering which currencies to use going forward. Now, I mentioned that there was a miracle cure, a miracle solution that we could look into. Let's explore that for a quick moment. And that's going to address what the real threat is. So the only way for US to get out of this situation and still keep the credibility of their US dollar, and as well as that control the financial system, is if they actually win back business. If they actually get products and services sold, exported abroad, and start paying back the debt. Making money and paying back the debt. At this point, the US doesn't make anything, really. It doesn't make clothes, Does it make any clothes or anything like that? Not really. Does it manufacture anything? Yeah, not really. China does that. Does it make electronics? Not really. China also does most of that. All right, what else does it do? Okay, technology. It does technology. Well, yeah, it does do that. But guess what? China will copy it in only a couple of months' time, the moment anything's invested, right? But really, China does most of that too, technology, right? We're talking about where do people get their microchips? Who's making the microchips these days? Well, that looks like it's China or Taiwan, really, right? Next door to China. So we're not even making the microchips in the US anymore. Intel's giving up. They're sending their contracts to Taiwan to make the microchips. Imagine this. China takes over Taiwan. America doesn't do anything. And then America doesn't have any microchips anymore. No computer chips. How can you be a tech leader without even computer chips, right? And now China has all the capacity to make computer chips. So who's going to be a tech leader then? And then we add into the fact, if they've taken over Taiwan, they're in the prime position to take over Japan, Korea, the other Asian countries one by one, and maybe Australia. And by that time, they will be able to push their digital yuan, their currency, to supplant the US dollar. So China taking over the place of the US is the third problem. It's leaving the door open for them to take over when the US currency is weak. So that's problem number 3. What's problem number 4? Well, you can imagine if they've taken over the financial system with the digital yuan, then China will be able to push more of their politics onto the rest of the world. And that becomes a threat to our liberty and our freedoms across the world. So at first, this problem was a debt problem. Okay, there's too much debt. Let's just gonna raise the ceiling. Let's just, kick the can down the road and we're all right. And it doesn't matter because we've got the printing press. Problem is, when you use the printing press too much and you have so much hits to your credibility, that US dollar starts looking very shaky. When you have a shaky US dollar, that leads to China looking to step in. If China looks to step in, if they do step in, then the whole world potentially is in trouble in terms of politically anyway. So I don't know if I'm looking into this too much. Maybe I am. Like, what do you guys think? Anyway, leave a comment below if you think I'm wrong or if you think I'm right. I'd love to hear what you guys think. On top of this, I do want to say one thing. I want to talk about the financial implications personally and what we can do to deal with this situation. But before that, I actually do want to ask you, if you like the video, please hit the like button. It really helps support my channel and my video. And if you haven't, hit the subscribe button too. And that way you can get on top of the latest videos and support the channel. And I feel like that this video is actually very important. Hopefully this highlights and explains to you clearly the long-term implications, the domino effect from the US debt and then into the US currency and then into geopolitics. And so if you'd like to share this with your friends, I'd strongly encourage it, your friends and family, because the Americans really need to be alert to this situation. And the US politicians are not helping. It's just a distraction. All this money printing from Jay Powell and getting those stocks to go up is just a distraction. The more the stocks go up in the straight line, the more ridiculous the US currency seems. The US stock market should not go up in a straight line up. No market acts like that. That just looks like pure inflation. So you add those couple of things up, and what the real solution is awareness. We need to be more aware. I'm not a US citizen, but I'm a citizen of the free world. We need to be more aware and hold our politicians to account. We need to get them to stop playing these games, and we need to get the US and other Western economies to start winning back business, to become more competitive and just create better products and services and allow them to innovate more and protect the IP and the technology theft. So those are a couple of solutions on a broader scale. But on a personal scale, I would recommend looking at assets that are away from the US dollar. Traditionally, we're looking at the gold, but maybe even cryptocurrencies. Really important to get yourself out of just US denominated assets, maybe hard assets, maybe real estate, land, gold, and so on and so forth, because we don't know how the future unfolds. Could this breakdown of the US leadership happen within months? Maybe, unlikely. Within years? Possibly. And we don't know what's going to happen with Taiwan. I'll make a video further with Taiwan, but that's something that really concerns me too. So if you really want to watch that, again, hit the subscribe button and the bell. You'll get it at some point when it comes out. But this is a major issue in global geopolitics. So anyway, that's my video for today. I hope that it did raise awareness with you. I really do appreciate you. And until the next one, I thank you. Share, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.